Hello, my name is Antoine Scott, Head of Programming here at Science Gallery Detroit, and I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining in on our Zine Making workshop with Neta Bomani for Science Gallery Detroit's exhibition, Future Present, Design the Time of Urgency. This exhibition is an encouragement of alternative narratives as it relates to design and its many disciplines. And we at Science Gallery Detroit find the process of zine making to be a powerful tool in preserving information and also sharing. It is our hope that you find a new way to connect with your own narrative and share your information with others in the world. We would like to thank the Michigan State University Federal Credit Union and Science Sandbox for their generous support of our exhibition programs and funding. I'd like to turn it over to Neta Bomani, our facilitator for this zine workshop.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to the Asynchronous Zine Making workshop. As Antoine said, my name is Neta, and you can refer to me by name or any pronouns. I'm a worker, an abolitionist, an educator, a zine maker, a learner, and a student who is studying how to make things with computers and programming languages in grad school. I also will be facilitating today's workshop, which we can refer to by its working name, Zine Making as Dark Surveillance. I'll get into more of what that might mean for us later in this workshop. So I'm just going to share my screen really briefly. It might take me a second. So I'm sharing my screen, and this is just a sort of mural board of our workspace here. Okay. I'm just going to zoom in. All right. So for context, Science Gallery Detroit's Future Present exhibition is about questioning the, quote, insufficiency and undesirable nature of many of the systems and subsystems in which we live, and the urgency for systemic change. Many of us find ourselves within an ongoing struggle against oppressive systems which limit our capacity to lead dignified lives through policing, imprisonment, and surveillance. As an abolitionist, I believe in the abolition of police, prisons, and the surveillance regimes they rely on to sustain their brutality and harm. I believe another world founded on trust, solidarity, mutual aid, and collective forms of living is possible. While there are many ways to get to this world, I would like to share one method with you during today's Asynchronous Zine Making workshop. Zines are a technology or a tool for sharing information, building and maintaining networks of affinity, or larger socio-political movements. Simply put, a zine is a handmade or homemade collection of paper or other physical or digital media compiled, bound, or intentionally linked together to create a publication. Often people put things they're interested in zines and make copies to share and distribute among an interested community of people engaged in a discourse or following around the interest. We can feel the sort of affective quality of zines in their capacity to serve as resources for oppressed communities, communicate through prison walls, support a world of movements from the Black freedom struggle to the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. They also build autonomous networks and expand publishing capacities outside of mainstream channels and expand radical imaginations as well. We might even consider zines love letters to the neighbors, friends, family, and networked computer devices of whom and which we share a world. So in this workshop, we will study the work of Simone Brown, Mandy Harris Williams, Hito Starrell, and Mask On, an anti-surveillance protest guide by organizers Priya Prabhakar, Nasma Ahmed, Maha Ahmed, Najma Sharif, Ellie Bell, Rithu Gia, myself, and a few anonymous individuals. The goal of our study is to explore how we might understand and perhaps subvert the proliferation of surveillance as it extends to our personal lives, our experiences on and off social media, and how we oscillate between feeling visible and invisible. We use our study as motivation to contribute to a digital zine that will be comprised of glitched or remixed images made by live and asynchronous participants of this workshop. Before we continue, are there any questions that the live participants have so far? Cool. So let's get into it. All right. So before we get into the actual study part, I just want to point us to this section of the mural board here, the instructions. And I'm going to introduce the activity that we'll be doing throughout this workshop. And just to note, this mural board is the space where you can come to seek any information regarding the contents of this workshop. It's also the space that you will find any kind of instructions about how to contribute the zine. And so as I mentioned earlier, we will be creating glitched or remixed images to put in the zine. And in Glitch Feminism, a book released recently by Legacy Russell, Russell defines glitch in many ways, and I would like to offer 3 definitions by her. The first being, a glitch is an error, a mistake, a failure to function. The second being, glitch is a form of refusal. And the last one being, to become an error is to surrender to becoming unknown, unrecognizable, unnamed. So we're going to practice a type of glitch called data bending, which is basically the act of manipulating data files by opening and editing a file in a program which it isn't necessarily intended for. So for example, we might open a sound file in an image editor, or we might open an image file in a text application, which is what we're going to be doing today. And at the core, every computer is basically a calculator which communicates in numbers. And for every digital object, like an image, a video, or any other type of file, on our computers, there are binary numbers and compressed data which represent that object. Using this knowledge, we can expand the way we interact with digital objects or files. For the purposes of this workshop, we will be using images, and typically when we work with images on our computers, laptops, tablets, smartphones, we might open them up in a photo editing application like Photoshop, VSCO, or Instagram. And when we're changing the visual appearance of the image, like maybe we increase the brightness or adjust the contrast or add a filter, behind the scenes, we're also changing the binary numbers or data that represents that image. So when we open it up into a text editor, we can see exactly what that representation looks like. So together we'll be making a zine made up of these glitched images and perhaps get inspired or influenced by the objects that we'll be studying. I'm going to walk you through some steps to get started, and just keep in mind that these steps are also outlined in the mural board if you find yourself lost. Okay. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find an image that resonates with you. There's a few ideas for inspiration. You might maybe find an image of you taken by somebody who captured it without your consent. You might find an image that you captured and posted and tagged of someone else without their consent. You could use a selfie, an image of an object in your personal living space. Any of these options here below are like totally fair game. And if you want to come up with something else on your own, that's totally fine too. And once you've decided what image you're going to use, you're going to download that image to your computer. And you're going to want to open that image with a text editor. So for example, if you're using Mac or Apple OS, you're going to use TextEdit. TextEdit is just a default editor. You can also find like free open source text editors online. One that I like that's on both platforms is Sublime. And then of course on Windows, there's Notepad. And then once you open it up, you're gonna randomly just look at the file, like look at what's going on. Maybe see if you notice any patterns, or if you're noticing anything that's weird, or something that's interesting to you, if anything stands out. And then just start randomly selecting different points of the document and delete and add things into it. So like you might, hide a secret message in this text editor and see how that impacts the visual appearance of your image. And you're going to want to make a copy of this image. So save a separate copy of it so that you're not damaging the original one. Because you're going to find that as we're working with these glitched images, it's really easy to corrupt the image. So you want to make sure that you're tracking every step and also making sure that it's possible to undo any actions that you take. And then you're just going to play around and add and delete text until you're happy with how it looks. And then we're going to sign up or log into Arena, which is basically just a bookmarking tool, an image sharing tool, a link, and a hypertext kind of tool you'll see once you log in. And you're going to upload your image that you create in this workshop to this channel. It's open for anybody to add their images to it. And then you're gonna write a title and description explaining what the image is or isn't. So really just take some time here to like think about what you want to describe your image or what you're sort of like trying to evoke in your image. Your description doesn't necessarily have to be literal. It can be literal, but it can also be poetic. It can be abstract. It can be a creative description of what you made. And you can also reference the objects of study and how they might inform your image. So just feel free to just experiment and play around with how you describe the image and how your description might render it more or less visible. And then once you're done, you're gonna add that title and description to Arena. And the way that you do that is just by clicking on the image. And then you'll see that there's a title field and a description field, and you can add that in there. Are there any questions so far about these instructions? Awesome. So whenever we're tasked with having to remix or create something new from scratch, or something that already exists, it can be helpful to ground ourselves in a text. This is true whether you're making a physical zine, like one that you might make with collaging materials like magazines and old textbooks, or a digital zine like the one we're making today. So just make an effort to shift yourself into a mode that you feel like you're collecting and sifting through material as if you're getting ready to make a collage. It can be helpful to just like get into this headspace. And if you need to, you can also take a minute to get any physical materials you might need to inspire you outside of your computer, like paper, markers, or pens. And so what I'll be doing next is just going into the 4 work examples, which will serve as our objects of study. And this will take about 15 to 20 minutes. And so you can use this time to start gathering images or choose, what kind of like, maybe like get a mood board going, whatever you need to do to just like start getting in a space of like, I'm making something. That's what you should be doing during this sort of like discussion of the objects of study. And so keep in mind that you're gonna wanna contribute at least 1 image to the zine. And for live participants, also keep in mind that you will be presenting your contributions at the end of the workshop. So if at any time during the workshop you have any questions or comments, feel free to interrupt me. It's my hope that this will feel more like a conversation rather than a lecture. So it's really not an issue if you feel like, you have a comment or you have a question or you have maybe a reference or another object of study that you feel like is relevant to bring to the discussion. Okay. So I'm gonna shift our view here, the mural board. Take a sip of water because I'm thirsty. All right. So let's begin with Simone Brown's Dark Matters on the Surveillance of Blackness. And this will help us start a conversation about surveillance. So a sort of canonically Western conversation about surveillance would probably involve surveillance as it extends to prisons, maybe citing Jeremy Bentham's 18th century panopticon or the events of September 11, 2001 as especially formative to surveillance studies. And this book by Simone Brown recognizes racialized Blackness as an integral component to surveillance studies, as Brown argues that we can't fully understand or build theory around surveillance technologies without grounding our analysis or any analysis in the first surveillance technologies, which arose out of slavery in the Jim Crow era. Surveillance studies emerges from a variety of disciplines involving sociology, geography, science and technology studies, criminology, and critical theory. To quote Brown, the questions that shape surveillance studies center on the management of everyday and exceptional life, personal data, privacy, security, and terrorism, for example. Brown writes that surveillance studies has been primarily concerned with how and why populations are tracked, profiled, policed, and governed at state borders, in cities, at airports, in public and private spaces, through biometrics, telecommunications technology, CCTV, identification documents, and more recently by way of internet-based social network sites such as Twitter and Facebook, or as my friend Miriam Kaba often calls it, Fedbook. And also focus are the ways that those who are often subject to surveillance subvert, adopt, endorse, resist, innovate, limit, comply with, and monitor that very surveillance. How can we connect this to how the pandemic has shifted our experiences of being surveilled? Think about how mask wearing is policed or how contact tracing is enforced by local and federal governments. Here I'm showing an example of a screenshot from Andrew Cuomo's Twitter. And this is where he was basically announcing this new app that got released in New York. It's an exposure app that alerts people whether or not they were in contact with other people who have COVID. So you can see here how surveillance is bolstered or proliferated within social disasters or pandemics. Hito Sorrell's How Not to Be Seen, a fucking didactic educational move file is another example that we can look at and also help us navigate how feeling invisible or visible at all times due to how we feel visible at all times due to constant surveillance. How Not to Be Seen questions whether or not it's possible to disappear and escape from an inordinate amount of surveillance. The video serves as an introduction manual for how to achieve states of invisibility. It's divided into 5 sections. 1, make something invisible for the camera. 2, be invisible in plain sight. 3, become invisible by becoming a picture. 4, be invisible by disappearing. And 5, become invisible by merging into a world made of pictures. I'll show you a clip of it so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about.
There are 13 ways of becoming invisible by disappearing. Living in a gated community. Living in a military zone. Being in an airport, factory or museum. Owning an anti-paparazzi handbag. Being fitted with an invisibility cloak. Being a superhero. Being female and over 50. Surfing the dark web. Being a dead pixel. Being a Wi-Fi signal moving through human bodies. Being undocumented or poor. Being spam caught by a filter. Being a disappeared person as an enemy of the state. Eliminated. Liquidated. And then dissimulated.
In the decades of the digital revolution, 170,000 people disappear. Disappeared people are annihilated, eliminated, eradicated, deleted, dispensed with, filtered, processed, selected, separated, wiped out. Invisible people retreat into 3D animations. They hold the vectors of the mesh and keep the picture together. They re-emerge as pixels. They merge into a world made of images.
How
Okay. So much of Stirrell's work concerns the study of images, how, quote, history has been replaced by the endless flowing recombination of fragmentary images, and how senses, things, abstraction and excitement, speculation and power, desire and matter converge within images. In an interview, Stirrell said, radical changes by liberals and neoconservatives have transformed the way that people see the world technologically, ideologically, visually, and on many other levels. The proliferation of images is one of these aspects. An image is more than ever defined by its momentum, drive, or quantity. It becomes meaningful by being shared and participated in, rather than by being contemplated at a distance. Both dark matters and how not to be seen can provide us with approaches for how we might begin to challenge or subvert surveillance, whether real and practical or absurd and fantastical. We can also look to Mandy Harris Williams, also known as Ideal Black Female on social media, who started the hashtag #BrownUpYourFeed as an extension of their work surrounding how algorithms programmed by developers of platforms like Instagram influence politics of race, gender, representation, and desirability. Okay. Williams uses the gamification of social platforms and Instagram captions as essays and methods of counter-surveillance to question how we might consider beauty and which bodies are considered valuable enough to be visible across mediums. Hashtag #BrownUpYourFeed suggests platforms prioritize content made by and featuring non-Black and Brown people, and that we all need to not only be more aware of our media consumption, but also more proactive about finding our own brown women, finding brown women, finding women with kinky hair, finding queer people, finding fat people, and people who are otherwise not being shown to us by the algorithm, yet still deserve to be seen, according to Williams. If we understand that surveillance means being monitored, tracked, and watched so that the watcher can gather information on the person being watched, what do we know about the watcher? Brown references media scholar John Fiske's idea that today's seeing eye is white. Brown connects this idea to philosopher Judith Butler's concept of, quote, racially saturated field of visibility, and scholar Maurice O. Wallace's concept of the picture-taking racial gaze, which both articulate how Black people are restricted to ways of seeing and conceptualizing Blackness through stereotypes and other means that impose limitations, particularly so in spaces that are shaped for whiteness. The gaze is violent in the way that it renders certain bodies human, inhuman, visible, or invisible. Both Brown and Harris show us that the violence of the cumulative white gaze continues long after slavery to this day. Another really quick example that I want to show us that I feel like really encapsulates what's being discussed here is this piece by Hannah Black called My Bodies. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll show you a clip of it.
Baby, I ain't trying to kill my body so my body, my body, my body, your body, my body, my body, your body, my body, my body, your body, my body, my body, my body, my body, your body, my body, my body, hold me in my body, shake my body, babe, yeah, my body, my body, my body, take my body, my body.
To shift gears, the anti-surveillance guide mascon.zone is a project that I worked on with Priya Prabhakar, Nasma Ahmed, Maha Ahmed, Najma Sharif, Ellie Bell, Rithu Gia, and a few other people who chose to remain anonymous that arose out of a shared frustration of seeing non-Black photographers attend protests and uprisings as opportunities to get published, go viral, or otherwise further their careers and creative practices, rendering them extensions of the surveillance state in a way that they deliberately endanger the lives of Black and brown protesters by making them super targets to the surveillance state. As a guide, Mask On outlines best practices for engaging in insurrectionary collective actions like protests, before, during, and after actions. It is also an effort to create a repository where we can learn from historical examples like COINTELPRO, which was an FBI program that actively and violently targeted Black organizers, activists, musicians, and other public figures that continues to this day under different names. Here is an anti-Martin Luther King Jr. advertising campaign that was run by the FBI. And so perhaps we can consider some of these objects of study and the practice of making zines as an act of what Brown calls dark surveillance, or an imaginative place from which to mobilize a critique of racializing surveillance in the form of anti-surveillance, counter-surveillance, and other forms of freedom practices. Here, Brown is referring to freedom practices as how Black performative practices and creative acts like fiddling, singing, and dancing function as surveillance acts used by people as a way to escape and resist enslavement or pursue freedom. We can also think of William's feed Browning, Sorrell's instructing, the Mask On collaborators field guiding, Brown's theorizing, in addition to donating to bail funds, writing manifestos, moshing, rioting, and looting as examples of dark surveillance. What might you consider acts of dark surveillance? Perhaps you can explore it in this scene or the next scene that you make. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And this pretty much concludes the sort of conversational lecture type part of this workshop. And now we're gonna shift our focus to our live participants who will present their contribution to the zine. You're each gonna have about 4 minutes to share, and you can start by introducing yourselves if you want to, and sharing your pronouns if you have any, in addition to your glitched image, your title, your descriptions, and any reflections you might have from this workshop. For now, we'll have 10 minutes for you to just polish and get ready to present your contributions. And I'm gonna start our timer for us. And let me know if you have any questions at this point. Or need any help with anything. One thing that I did want to share that I forgot to share is how the glitching sort of like happens. So I'm going to share my screen again briefly. Just to, sorry, I should have showed this earlier. Okay. Share my desktop. Okay, so I had taken these pictures like earlier today, and I have this like selfie picture, and I also have a screenshot of a text message thread that from one of me and my close friends. And what I did is I just, and I can make another copy. So I'm just, oops. I'm just going in, I don't want to look that up. I'm going in and I'm like, I usually just duplicate it right off the bat, but you can also duplicate it in your text editor. And then I just go into my text editor. And when I open it up, it's just like all of these really bizarre looking characters and Unicode characters and all of these things. And so what I just do is like, you know, I kind of give it a look because oftentimes there's patterns to it. Like this block right here keeps showing up. And to me, that kind of like, when I look at the image itself, it also has like a pattern to it. So I feel like there's some kind of correlation here. And what I do is I just like start very small. So this part at the top, sometimes I notice like you do this a few times, like if I break the image, it's usually because I'm messing with this stuff at the top. And this also has like some copyright info and maybe some like really important metadata about the image. So I just don't touch that area. And then I just like, okay, I don't really want that. I'm gonna delete all this. I'm gonna save it. And then when I save it, you can see that I'm like starting to glitch it. And that's really interesting to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna delete that. Let me scroll down and delete some of this, some of that. I don't know, this section. And I might even just like start putting other text in there. So I really like the work of this poet named Lucille Clifton. So I'm just gonna like copy her poem 1994 and put it in here because that year is really significant to me. And go back into the text file and just say whatever this is, I'm gonna just replace that with her poem. And then it's like kind of like a little secret that I have in here. And then I'm also just gonna like say, hello world. Present. Save that. Oops, I keep doing that. When I look at it, it's like getting even more glitched. So I'm like, what would happen if I just just put this poem like everywhere in this image? It's like randomly selected pieces. I'm just gonna like create my own pattern in here. I don't know, let's see what happens. So that has like significantly altered this. And this is looking pretty cool to me. And I can spend a lot of time here. Like I can, you know, really get into it. Maybe I say like, I'm gonna put another poem in here by Lucille Clifton. I think I want to do homage to my hips actually. And I'm just gonna go in. And just put that in randomly as well. This feels like I haven't done anything at the bottom yet. Seems like a lot of my edits seem to be happening at the top. I don't know if it's like linearly related like that, but I'm gonna just see what happens if I edit the bottom half of this text file. And I'm just indiscriminately, like I have no idea what's going on or what's gonna happen. And then when I save it, did I save it? So there's like more of a glitchy look to it now. I kind of like what's happening to this wow here. Yeah, so this is the original one. And then compared to this one. And then earlier I was like working on this selfie. I don't know, it kind of depends on like the image. I find that this one was like taking me forever to just get anything going on, but essentially like you can end up with some really interesting results if you spend a lot of time glitching these images. But how are y'all feeling? Like, how are y'all feeling about the time? Do you need more time?
Yeah, probably. I'm having issue importing the image into the text edit, and I don't know how to like get that code. Could you explain how to do that?
Yeah. So what are you on? Like, are you on a Mac? A PC?
Yeah, I'm on a Mac. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I totally breezed over that. I'm just like so used to it. So what I do when I'm on my Mac is I just, like, I have a Finder window, and then I just have the file selected, and I just drag it into the application when it's open on my dock.
Okay.
And that usually, like, opens it. You can also, I believe, like, you can click on it, or whatever your version of right click is, and you can, like, select open with and then choose other. And then hopefully,
Oh,
and then
sure.
go to your applications and then select whatever your text editor is, and it should open it with it.
Okay. Yeah, it's only showing up half the image, and then I can't get the code that was on your screen, but maybe I can just keep fiddling.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can share your screen.
Sure. It says there's not enough space to save this document to iCloud, so maybe that's it. But that doesn't.
Is anyone else having similar issues like this?
For me, I'm just like, I'm able to open the code because I just go to all files as opposed to a text file, and I'm able to open it. But no matter what I delete, like once I try to look at the image, it pops up as file not found.
Okay, so let's try to help Aaron out real quick.
Thank you. So this is the image I'm trying to put in.
Right.
It's my friend Camille walking upstairs in Harlem.
Right.
And I got this odd man in the background, and so I thought that'd be fun.
So do you have TextEdit open in your doc somewhere?
Yeah, it's next to it.
Okay. So can you, like, how did you do it? Did you just drag it in there, or did you?
Yeah, I just dragged it in.
Okay, so at the top, like in your toolbar, if you go to, sorry, I'm like trying to see what it is on mine first. So if you go to format, and then make plain text, what happens?
Oop.
It's just gone.
Something, yeah. I've never used TextEdit ever, so maybe my computer is freaking out.
What happens if you drag it in again?
Sure.
Hey, Aaron, what kind of file is it? What kind of file are you using?
Yeah.
JPEG. Is that the issue?
I don't think that's the issue. I'm using a JPEG as well.
I'm going to exit out and start anew.
I tried to use a screenshot earlier, and it wasn't really doing anything. It was kind of just turning blank, like you mentioned.
Okay.
Oop. Let's see. Yeah, this is so strange because, like, when I'll just show y'all, like.
Oh, I see something.
So are you dragging into the application icon, or are you just putting it into, like, the blank?
I thought it was putting it right into the blank space on TextEdit.
Try to drag it just, like, into the application icon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got something. Well.
Is it the actual text?
Yeah. Let me screen share it. Yeah.
This is exactly what we want. Sorry I wasn't clear. So
no, that's okay.
What you do is, like, you don't want to just, like, pop it in because it'll just, like, give you the file path, or, like, if you have it on rich text, it's just going to put the image in there. So yeah, to clarify for, like, asynchronous participants, make sure you're just dragging it into the actual application icon in your doc. And that might mean that you open up the application first and then drag it in.
Wow, that's odd. I've never.
I know, it's
that's a strange fix.
It's really interesting, but yeah, just see maybe what happens.
Yeah, how then do I view the image? Like, if I mess with things.
So the way that I do it is I make a copy, and I think if you like click the down arrow at the top where it says img5062.jpg.
Gotcha.
It will let you make a copy and, like, save it.
Yeah, I made a copy in Finder, so I should be good.
And
Okay, I'll stop.
your copy can be your backup, or you can like work off the copy, whatever you
Okay.
know is like your original one, because if you mess it up, it might be really hard to undo it.
Gotcha.
Maddie, you were also having issues. And Patrick, were you as well?
I switched to another file type and figured it out.
Okay, cool.
Oh, so I'm in a PC, and like no matter what I click to delete, like even if it's just like one letter, when I try to reopen the picture file, it just says file not found and won't open it.
And that's even when you make a copy of it first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And are you using Notepad?
Yeah, I'm using Notepad.
Okay. I haven't actually done this on a PC, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
My thought is to maybe try downloading Sublime.
Okay.
Or another free
yeah, I have Sublime Text, but I tried opening it in there and it just opens a file, like the actual picture itself. How do I import it into Sublime?
Let me try to use my Sublime here. Alyssa, Holly Ann, how are y'all doing? Well,
I am working on an image, although I'm not getting much besides random lines. So I'm thinking of switching to another one and see what happens.
yeah, random lines is kind of the look that you usually get, at least when you really starting off.
Is there like, because I'm like deleting things and I'm moving things around and I'm adding like random words and letters, is there anything else you can add to make something happen?
I guess anything that might be text-based. You could try adding, like I think there's something called the Gutenberg library or something like that. There's a bunch of like free just like long form like books and things like that, and you can get like the text for them. In cases where you have like a really long text file and it's like you're just making really minute changes by adding words or maybe just like a few lines of text, you might not see really interesting things. So maybe using something like actually trying to put in like a longer text. I'm putting the link in the chat to gutenberg.org. That might maybe like amplify things or set things up.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to bring in something to this other text editor. 1 second. This is interesting. Okay. Yeah, so my text editor is doing something similar where it's just showing the image. So 1 sec. Okay, so I think you can do something where you disable the internal image viewer. And I'm just gonna put this link in the chat for you, Patrick, because I think the steps are pretty clear. But basically you're gonna want to, what they're saying, so there's 2 answers on this Stack Overflow, but it's saying you can add the file name .hex at the end of your image. So if you have like an image .jpeg, you would just add .hex to that file.
Okay.
And then Sublime should open it. And then let's see how you actually disable. not have the answer.
Here we go. So I saved it in Notepad as a text file, and then I just opened it through the Sublime as the text file. So hopefully this will
And
work.
that worked?
Well, it popped up in my Sublime as a text file now.
Oh, okay.
By doing that. But I don't know if it'll work once I start deleting stuff.
I really didn't expect to be like this to be the route into this zine making. This is interesting.
Yeah, I figured, you know, it's kind of hard to do like zine making digitally, especially when you don't know like what materials you have access to in your space. And so a digital zine is like the sort of natural next step is like, oh, well, if we can't make something physically together, like maybe we can make something digitally together. And I've done different types of digital zine making workshops, like one where we're coding together with like HTML and CSS, and others where we're just like something like a mural board and like collaging together. And I wanted to try this one out because, and I'll say this later, but one of my former teachers, Everest Pipkin, has a workshop called The Fuzzy Edges of Character Encoding, and it's a pretty technical workshop, but it's not just technical, it's also whimsical and just fun. And we talk about like emojis and Unicode and like hex characters and just like the different ways that basically computers are understanding text. And so in this is like where I learned like, oh, computers like are constantly trying to convert binary numbers into like things that can look to us as like images. And so it's all really just like a bunch of text data underneath the scenes. And Everest, they showed me this sort of like way of glitching images through the text editor. And I think that it's really fun. And it's like pretty quick way to like maybe start, it's a different way to start collaging with an image because you're literally like deleting things from an image, but you're doing it in this sort of like manual kind of way and in a way that we're not used to doing in maybe like Photoshop or other image editing tools. So yeah, it's more lo-fi, but it's something that is really interesting to me. And I just wanted to give it a shot for today, especially when we're thinking about like, you know, surveillance has a lot to do with the fact that images are legible and resolution, which is some of the things that Hito Sorel was talking about in this video, How Not to Be Seen. And so, you know, if glitching images was more in our practice as like people who are constantly uploading images and content to like our social media, how would surveillance maybe shift if this was like a more normative practice? And would this practice become, you know, a regular practice of like counter surveillance? So yeah, it's just like a little testing it out a little. And it's nice that we're like encountering some errors, some glitches on the way, because it's literally the name of the game. So yeah, we do have some little extra time, so please take your time. There's no rush at all.
I'm having a little trouble with mine. It's one, it'll like, it's not really glitching. It'll delete like huge chunks of the image.
Like graying out areas and things like that.
Or just like half the image will show up. So like it'll like cut it in half or in like a third. So I was using text edit and I have Sublime like just for coding and stuff. How did you say to move it into Sublime again?
So in Sublime, what this Stack Overflow was saying was to add .hex at the end of your image extension. And if you have a Mac, I believe you can just do that by right-clicking it. You might also have to like reveal your extensions in your settings. But basically that's what it was saying to do. And then according to that, like Sublime will recognize it as a hex file and show you the sort of the characters, like the text characters that we're looking for. But in terms of the sort of glitching out large sections, I've also struggled with that. And the way that I don't have a real like methodology for getting a good glitch. I would just start over and like try a different pattern or like try something else. Like maybe your image, like maybe the pieces that you were deleting were like specifically like in that section, or like were too much in that section. And so maybe you want to delete less from that section. And like spread out your deletions.
Yeah, my image is unable to be opened, so I think I have to start over and try a different route. Yeah.
I've done glitch art before, like on a PC, and I remember I did it for a class. I remember them saying like the first like fourth of the text document not to delete that because it'll like damage the image too much to like open. But
yeah, I can say that that's pretty true. I just ignore the first half of it, or like I ignore the part because you can kind of tell that the first part of it is important because you see that there's copyright. You see, like in mine, like I'm looking at one and the first line is saying what the file type is. It says PNG. And then let's see, in this other one that I was showing you earlier, the JPEGs, this JPEG doesn't have the extension, but it's like, it has things that say like profile and like the copyright. It just seems too important, and it's different from the other parts of the image. Like I can see where it's starting to become the image and like certain things are starting to repeat and things like that. So I'm just like kind of like intuiting that maybe I shouldn't mess with that. So I think that's true. But as you've done like PC art, maybe you can help Patrick out. Like how have you done it in the past?
I don't really know. This is like last year this time. The same process, like of using Notepad. I just remember having problems with deleting the first half of it, which I recently switched to a Mac, so I'm having Mac problems now. So yeah, I just did it in Notepad.
Okay. Patrick, are you still struggling?
Yeah, it's not working.
Oh, man. Sorry. Let's see if we can find like an online tool for this. So this is a hex editor. I'm putting a link to the chat to a URL, hex.it. And I believe that you can open images. I'm just gonna open my selfie. Oh yeah, okay. So this hex editor will show you, it'll show you like the hexadecimals, and it'll also show you the characters that the text, like a text editor should show you. And you can go in and just start deleting stuff. I wonder if you can like see your image. Doesn't look like you can. Yeah, so this looks like it's a good alternative for people who are having issues opening images in a text editor on their computer. This is it's a bit slightly more tedious because you kind of have to like, it's more incrementalized in the way that you're editing the hex pieces, but let's see. I kind of want to find one that lets you look at your image as you're editing it. Because I just corrupted my file and I wish I could like undo everything.
I'm only getting glitches in the bottom, like half of my image. Would you have any fixes for that, or is that just experimenting?
It's really just experimental.
Okay.
I think maybe you're editing too much in the same section and you just need to like get elsewhere.
Okay.
How's it going for you, Holly Ann?
I started with a different image, which, let's see, my first one was a JPEG. This one is a PNG, which I think might have originally been a screenshot. So I'm finding that like this one's a lot more sensitive. Like if I delete something, sometimes like a huge chunk of the image just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found like some more subtle areas, I guess, where it sort of makes these weird horizontal lines on the bottom of the image, and I'm not sure. I have to zoom in to see if something else is happening. But it's interesting. Like this one's more sensitive than the other one for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different like factors, and I'm definitely not somebody who's like well versed in imaging and like image compression specifically, but I noticed like a few days ago, like I was trying to glitch an image that a really small image that I found on like Tumblr or something like that, and one little line just like deleted the whole thing. So
yeah, I'm finding even like one character can delete like a huge chunk.
That can be really interesting maybe.
Yeah, I've like eliminated part of the image, but I want to like preserve some of it.
Yeah, that's also like a really challenging bit for me too, because like in my screenshot with, you know, the text messages, I'm like, there are certain aspects of the words that I still want to remain legible, but I have no idea how to control that.
Right.
Which is, I guess, the point. How's it going for you, Maddie?
I got some cool stuff to happen. Like, I figured out how to get different pieces of the image to shift to the right and the left. So, I don't know. Something I would definitely want to like keep experimenting with like what different types of images would do, and I don't know. I tried a bunch of different stuff, like adding, deleting, copying and pasting, and tossing them in different spots. put some essay I wrote for school in there. Your eyes.
That's cool. How are folks feeling, like, in terms of still presenting, one, and also just in general, like, about the workshops? Are you having, like, any thoughts or reflections?
I feel like such a novice. I want to continue finding ways to, because right now I'm only getting horizontal glitches. I'm like, okay, well, what can we get, like diagonal glitches, or I don't know, like circular patterns or something like that, just to even mess with it more. I think it's really cool. I hadn't even considered doing this. This is really interesting.
I like how you can see all of the information actually laid out.
Mm-hmm.
And when you actually get into the guts of it, you realize like how much goes into a single image. And to think that like every single image that's online or saved on our computers has all of this data encrypted in it is crazy.
Yeah.
For sure.
It did not like what I just did. Ooh. I feel like I'm hacking.
I mean, you are.
Yeah.
Benign hacking.
I'm a hacker.
I mean, anytime, I feel like I'm kind of the mind to think that anybody who has a computer and can successfully log onto their computer is hacking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just something that, you know, using our computers in any kind of device is a really emotionally like taxing process, and like involves a lot of mental energy, processing power, and especially now that we're increasingly more on our screens, I just feel like, yeah, it's like anytime you can get on here and do what you got to do, that's a hack, and like you hacked it.
It'd be cool if, as you like did your stuff on the computer, this cloud of all the data that's being generated just like keeps scrolling past you.
Well,
and just fill up the whole room.
Well, you get cloudy really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have like so much stuff on my computer. It's screenshots, like, oh my God.
I'm gonna try copying and pasting one image's text into another.
Ooh.
We'll see what happens. I wanna merge them.
That's clever.
Cool.
I just recently like got off Twitter, and the night that, maybe this is too political for this workshop, but who cares? But my friend like was like, he texted me about the energy of Twitter on the night that Trump got COVID, and I was just his analogy was very funny. He was like, it feels like this particular night like 10 years ago. That I was like, oh. So I'm gonna see what happens if I try to put that text conversation into that other image that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna blow up.
I feel like that's something that I hadn't thought about, because you're essentially weaving two strings of data together, which potentially could yield interesting results.
Yeah.
It would be cool if you could, like, I don't know if this hex editor like allows you to do it, but I wish you could just like, you know, there's got to be a way to programmatically just like shuffle things in a kind of pattern. That could be really cool. Because I think the things you were describing earlier about like wanting to create circles or like other types of like more intentional patchwork or like patterns, it seems like you would have to do that in a way that's more systematic rather than just randomly, indiscriminately like removing things.
I feel like if I mess with it too much, it just glitches out like the same, like 3/4. So it didn't work, but that's okay.
It was worth a shot.
It was worth a shot. Agreed.
How's it going with you, Patrick?
Not good.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was in a class with other people who did this on PC, and it seemed no one had these problems, so I thought that it would work on both PC and Mac. Were you able to try the online editor at all?
Yeah, I tried the online editor, but it wouldn't like let me save it back to look at it as a photo. So it's just like it was just messing around with the code.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I feel like the hex editor, I guess the way, I don't know, maybe I was just like, I feel like I'm on the same kind of lines that I'm editing in my text editor, but it still was not letting me like download it. So I don't know if this is totally reliable, but it's something that I need to do some research on just in case other people participating asynchronously encounter this issue. That's okay. I'm glad that you tried. That's all that matters. You made an effort. How's it going with you, Alyssa? Did you get over your Mac woes?
Not really. It's really weird. It's like when I edit it and then I like try to open it, I can see the like glitched image for like 10 seconds, and then like the photo previewer just like goes blank, like it crashes or something. Strange.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Like my mind is like thinking maybe it's like a memory issue, but I don't know if it's a memory issue because I have a computer that I have memory issues with. Are you using like the default preview app?
Yeah.
What happens if you like, do you have any other image editing software or like image viewing programs on your computer?
I tried to open it like Photoshop and Illustrator, but they couldn't read the file. I don't. No, I don't have it. I don't have another one. Let me see. Wait, I have an idea.
Whoa. I did something cool.
It sounds exciting.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy. I'm done. No, I look like I'm in like that Edward Snowden movie.
Oh.
Like,
Are you all in school or?
I graduated in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
My mom apparently just got my freaking diploma in the mail. And I was like, oh, I forgot that was even going to come.
Yeah.
Nice pat on the back.
I got my PDF diploma first.
Wow, nice. I didn't even know they made those.
Yeah, me neither.
We should glitch that.
Yeah.
Turn into a JPEG and go to work.
That actually isn't a bad idea.
I'm an artist.
How did you all get involved with Zines Gallery?
Looking for a job, saw an application, and was like, oh, that seems right up my alley. I would love to go talk to people about art and exhibits, and because I want to go into gallery work maybe someday. It seemed like a thing to do.
Cool. So yeah. What do you do for the gallery?
Does someone else want to take this? I don't know. We all kind of do the same thing, but different routes on those things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In like a normal world, we would be in this space, kind
Mhm.
of taking people through it and facilitating conversations in the actual space. But now we scoot around in a little robot, which is even
Wait,
better.
you're serious?
I'm serious, yeah. You
Yeah.
like zoom in to this little iPad on legs, basically, and take people around the gallery from our homes. Like, I'm in Grand Rapids. I'm not even in Detroit. Yeah, and Aaron's in New York.
I do
and
it right
it's
from the
everywhere.
seat.
Yeah.
Wait.
Mhm.
This is really shocking to me. Sorry. So there's a little robot that has an iPad, and is it your voice or is it like a computer voice?
It's like if we were FaceTiming in or like zooming in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it less scary.
Yeah, a little bit.
Imagining like a little robot that just sounds like when you like turn dictation on or something.
I have wanted to get, like, do you remember those megaphones that you could do the cool effects through?
Oh my god, yeah. Like
I want
something
to get
like that.
one to do a robot voice.
Oh my god. Wow.
It's wild. I mean, like thinking about like if someone had told me in like 2004, like Aaron, in 2020, this is what you're going to be doing, I'd be like, what? And because like I don't know, I remember reading like kids magazines that predicted the future. Like here's what 2015 is going to look like, and they had like the completely ridiculous inventions. But we really advance in these kind of kooky ways, automated, especially during this pandemic.
That is just I'm like I want to know what that experience is like for the person in the gallery, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I either like fascinate people or scare them.
Mm-hmm.
You sneak up on them too fast. But one time so we have 2 robots in this space so that they can charge interchangeably. And one time I was in there and the robot that I was in died. And so I switched over to the other robot and I drove that one out and like came up on my dead body. And it was so weird.
Well, and when the robot dies, like it turns black and white, which is kind of weird.
Wait, the actual image does, or like
it happened with me? Like
Mm.
the other day when I was mediating, I died a few times, and it turned black and white.
So your screen, like what you're seeing, or like the actual
like
robot?
The screen of what I'm seeing, both like because we have the camera that shows your face, and then we have the camera that shows like straight ahead, and then a downward angled camera.
And on the downward
right now, the whole image of like seeing your it's not even like the fact that you describe it as your body is also really interesting.
A new corporeal form.
You feel attachment to like this robot form that it becomes you, and this also says a lot just about just like what it means to be a worker and like the sort of like automation of our job. Like the technology is not advanced enough for the robot to replace you, right? So you have to like merge into the robot, and like the robot still needs a human to guide somebody through the experience of whatever, looking at art. Like, could a robot understand that? Like, could a robot talk about sort of like, I don't know, whatever people talk about when they talk about art, or whatever you like, how you're like, you know, the hospitality that you extend to people in this exhibition, like that's, yeah, there's just a lot to think about there.
I feel like I already go into like robotic scripts though when I'm talking about specific things. Like I speak about, I bring up specific anecdotes, or I engage them with specific questions. So like in a way, I'm already becoming this robot.
Right.
It's very scary.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like our first exhibition of Science Gallery, we had this piece for people would design a robot to take their jobs. Like you were designing your own automation. And that was like the first exhibition we did, which is really weird. But
Oh my goodness. That's a lot. And this was before you were robots?
this was before we were robots.
Okay.
This is like summer
It's like
2018.
been realized now. Like it
Yeah.
actually happened.
That's some foreshadowing right there.
Oh man.
It's crazy because like we were in the same building then that we are in now. Because we like our second exhibition we switched buildings and we ended up coming back. So that's really, and the robots are like in the same spot where that piece was. That's actually really weird. That's strange.
Oof. Wow. Yeah, thank you all for sharing that with me because that really puts a lot of things into perspective for me right now. And I feel like it is actually sadly really related to this workshop and just in general, like what, like if a, you know, a person visiting the exhibition, like, are they going to want to interact? Like, do they want to interact with you, you know, because you have this camera and you're like following them around and they're like, you know, like, are they being monitored? Like, are you recording everything, like all your exchanges when you're this robot? Like, do you feel like yourself when you're in the robot, you know? Like, there's all these questions about just how the technology specifically in this instance is like mediating your humanity or like your capacity to be human and like the other person, you know, the person in the gallery, their capacity to also just like be a human who's just looking at some art or like whatever, enjoying their time out of their house, you know, like, so yeah, that's a lot. I don't know. And I want to say I'm sorry, you know, because I feel like, yeah, the experience, the kind of like dissonance that you have when you're like in the robot, I feel like that definitely has an effect on you and like will have an effect on you. And when you look at this like years from now, you'll probably know a lot more about how you feel and have an understanding, or maybe you won't. I don't know. Who knows? Like, could just get worse. We could all just like, eventually we'll all become robots since we can't like see each other in person, technically, like maybe we'll all have robots in the future that we send out to hang out with our friends. But yeah, I guess like we should probably wrap up soon. Not all of us have to present, but it would be nice if we could get like at least 2 people to like share what they made in the workshop so that people who are, if they end up watching asynchronously, like they can get some ideas of maybe what can be created from this workshop. And then also just in general, like have something up on the Arena channel, and then I'll show y'all like how to make an actual zine from the Arena channel to just like round things out. And I guess like we can just cut out our whole conversation about the gallery and the robots. I don't know. It seemed like y'all told me that in confidence, so like I'm just making a note on the record that maybe we should just like delete that conversation, and also just like maybe cut to the presentation part after. I think I said something along the lines of giving y'all 10 minutes to prepare, and then we'll just like start here. So this is just like an editorial note. Okay. So let me just review my notes for a second. Yes, we're still recording. Okay. So who wants to start?
I can start. Do you want me to share my screen? Would that be best?
Sure, yeah, you can totally share your screen, introduce yourself, share your pronouns if you would like to, and share your image and any type of description, title, reflections that you have.
Okay, great. I'm Maddie. My pronouns are they, them. I'm gonna share my screen quick with y'all.
Wow.
All right. So what I ended up doing was I took a scan of an illustration I did this week, because I thought it would be cool to take something that is real, like a drawing on a piece of paper that has no data whatsoever, and then kind of like dig into how much is generated just from scanning it and turning it into like a digital thing. So yeah, when I started messing around with the information, I got it to flip somehow and chopped it so that I guess it's like moving off both sides of the page as if it's like on a loop. Then some weird colors happened and some choppy bits. So I really don't know exactly what happened with any of this, but it was cool to see how much information was present in something that like last night had none at all, really. And to see how much just like random nonsense I could include in it, and it still looks kind of like an image, which I thought was kind of surprising, to paste like a whole essay also about robots in there, and it still looks like a picture. It's crazy that there can be like so much extra stuff and it still translates that way. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Maddie. Do you have a title for the image you created?
Oof. I'm gonna call it Chopped and Screwed.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone like to go next?
Yeah, I would. I'd be happy to share. So, I took an image of me as a Boy Scout from like 2011, which is like I don't know, like a tense part of my life, for reasons. And this is kind of an iconic image that I tweet a lot because I think it's just like a silly image. But is it so like I've glowed up. But I don't know. The title so far is like Boy on Fire, and I want to go even further with it because I think this is a picture actually of a computer screen that I took with like my like phone in like 2015 or something like that.
Meta, very meta.
Yeah. So giving it even a more digitized feel is kind of fun. I'm guessing my dad took the photo. This is right outside of a church. But yeah, that's kind of what I was working on. And then I'll quickly show the other one I did. It's of my wonderful friend Camille. I met them in Harlem, and this was the one that was my first go. It was a bit trickier, but I like this man. He's very fun. But yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, really awesome contributions from Maddie and Aaron. I don't know, I feel like I like the intentionality behind yours, Maddie, just the idea that like, you want to take something that is analog, perhaps, doesn't have any digital information in it, and then bringing it into this like digital space where you completely remix something that was totally your own is like super cool. And just like the composition and the colors that you were able to achieve were like super, super like beautiful to me. And Aaron, yours I mean, it's the fire for me. I think like the anarchist inside me is like, what's going on here? There's fire.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
exciting. I'm like, the rake, like, were you raking leaves or did you set the fire? You know, there's a
I
lot,
don't remember.
to question in that image, and also just the deeply personal story behind it, and just like you turning, you know, a really rough period of your time into something new is like, you know, very healing and very amazing. So yeah, thank you both for sharing. Did anyone else want to share before we wrap things up? It's okay if the answer is no. There's no pressure. I'm taking this as a no. Is that cool? Okay, so yeah, this concludes our workshop, and I just wanted to thank everybody for participating, and anybody who's listening to this workshop, whether live or asynchronously. And I also just wanted to take this moment to acknowledge all the artists and the theorists whose work informed this workshop: Simone Brown, Mandy Harris-Williams, Ido Sorel, Priya Prabhakar, Nasma Ahmed, Maha Ahmed, Najma Sharif, Ellie Bell, Ritu Gia, Hannah Black, Everest Pipkin, Melanie Hoff, Plucked, Legacy Russell, Miriam Kaba, Fred Moten, and so many more who I'm sure I'm just neglecting to mention because my memory is failing me, but please check out the works cited on the mural board for a complete list of works cited. And that's all for today. Thank you.